So hey everyone, Ralston here again with Strive Academics. Today we're back with Ahead of the Curve, episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about strategies and study tips that students can use to stay on track during this time while they're distance learning. We know a lot of students are struggling with just staying on top of their schoolwork. I know a lot of times when using those learning management systems, things, especially now, have been a little bit rushed. So with it now, I've seen in some of the students that I'm meeting with online that, some of them are falling behind. Some of the some of the assignments are falling through the cracks where, if we're not in there, sending a reminder every single day, then, it can be easy to lose track of some things when teachers are sending messages at all sorts of times. Sometimes the class schedule isn't as defined. So without that structure, it makes it a lot more difficult for some students to stay on top of everything. So as I mentioned, I'm Ralston. I'm going to be talking about that today. I'm going to be incorporating some of the study tips that I've talked about in the past before, in addition to talking about some of the tools that I talked about last time. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. So one of the core things that I think helps a lot with students is just taking time to sit down and prioritize everything. That means creating a schedule, whether it is in an agenda that you get from your school, whether it is a physical planner. I know I used to use one of those, or if you have a smartphone, everyone who has one has access to a calendar, whether it's Apple Calendar or Google Calendar or something else. Just take the time to sit down and put some structure into place. You can do that on your own or with a parent, but sitting down, taking time to sit down and say, okay, from this 50-minute block or so, I'm going to be working on my math assignments versus, okay, in the next 50-minute block, I'm going to work on some science work and try to get that all done within that time. In addition to this, I think students should take the time to, because as I mentioned up top, teachers are sending messages at all sorts of times during the day because things are a little looser now. So, you might ask a teacher a question and then you have to wait for them to respond, or perhaps they post an assignment in the middle of the day. It can be a little confusing to stay on top of it. So I suggest setting designated times to check on your emails, to check any messages in your in your class study system or anything like that, to make sure that you're staying on top of any sort of communication that your teacher is giving you. So personally, I would suggest doing this either 2 or 3 times during the day. If just 2 times, then set a time for the morning and set a time for the afternoon where you can check in just to make sure that nothing was missed. If you really need to, then maybe try adding one midday, maybe around lunchtime, or like maybe 1 or 2 p.m. to where you can check in to see if anything new has been posted in the meantime. This is especially helpful if your teacher requires particular assignments to be turned in during that same day. So you definitely want to make sure that you're staying on top of those assignments, because it's really easy to miss track of some of those things. And for students that are just have the difficulty staying on top of everything, especially taking that time to focus. I mentioned a couple of study tools before where it can either, it's a commitment device where it keeps you from doing anything but studying, keeps you off of certain websites, or it could be just anything that keeps you on track. And so whether it's notifying a parent that this is the time that you're going to be studying, or whether it's something like using a tool like I mentioned last time, like Cold Turkey, where it literally locks down your screen or prevents you from accessing certain websites, then do whatever you need to do to make sure that you're staying on track and make sure that you're able to focus. So if that includes creating a playlist so that you can study and so that you can drown out all the background noise, do whatever you can to make sure that you're staying on task. And so kind of in conjunction with that, use a timer if you need to. You can use a simple stopwatch, say that, okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to work on nothing but this assignment. Or for this block of time, like I mentioned before, I'm only going to work on this particular class and its assignments, and make sure that I'm up to date or can get as far as I possibly can with everything that's included there. Or you can use something like a Pomodoro timer where it keeps you, in regimented times again, where you can do little sprints of work to try and get things done. But make sure that you're also building in breaks, because you don't want to get overwhelmed. And this comes the other challenge with studying from home and working from home, any kind of distance learning. You've got to give yourself some time to rest, because it can get really overwhelming. Things tend to just blur. A lot of us adults have trouble with it too, where, without the defined times to do work, it becomes harder to kind of have those times where you check out. It becomes a little harder to keep yourself accountable to doing that. So make sure that once the time that you set aside to do the work is over, make sure once that time is up, go ahead and do something else, whether it's switching gears to a different assignment, but more likely, I would like to see you really just switch gears completely. Do something fun, play a game, take a breath of fresh air, of course, with distance in mind. Do something fun for yourself, answer text messages, chat with a friend, watch a TV show, something, just to mix it up a little bit. Make sure that you're not, overwhelming your brain with too much work at one time, because it's really important to understand that you got to treat it like a marathon. You can't just go full force into it, because you're going to be exhausted at the end of the day. So make sure that you are really taking the time to manage your energy properly, so that you can keep up with everything throughout the day and in the long term, as this is turning out to be more and more. And if it's becoming difficult to keep yourself on task and maybe to have someone else check in, then try to, form a study group or get a study buddy. Reach out to some people in your class or just your friends, and keep in touch in general to keep up with their best practices and help keep each other accountable, because that's going to help you stay on track with your work. So, form a group. We have a little bit more about how you can choose the right study buddy in the link in the description, as well as which leads to a previous article on our site. But take the time to form that group, and form a group that can provide you not only with that accountability, but can also provide you with additional resources, maybe keep you aware of any news or any updates that you may have missed throughout the day. So it's important to do that as well. So like I mentioned before, we have links in the description below to some of our blog articles from previously, where I've taken some of these tips from, in addition to some of the resources like the worksheets that I've mentioned in the past. But in addition to that, keep in mind that if you find that none of this other stuff is really working for you, then perhaps maybe it's time to consider getting some professional help. And so obviously that's what we do here at Strive Academics. We provide in-home and online tutoring, though of course now it's primarily all in-home, not in-home, but online tutoring. So if you find yourself where you're slipping behind, none of these tips seems to be working particularly well for you, and you just cannot stay on track, and you need someone to really help reinforce those study habits, or just explain the concepts because you're not getting that additional help that you may have gotten from school before, then give us a call. Just go to our website, www.striveacademics.com, /tutoring if you want to learn more about our tutoring services, but we'd be glad to help you. Of course, but as always, we'll be here every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. For the time being. Next week, we'll be back with another episode where I'll go into some more tips, resources, and news that students can use during this time. Before we go, I just wanted to mention a quick resource. So you'll see this more on our Facebook or YouTube stream. So make sure if you're on Instagram, check out that feed there. But today I'm mentioning our well, not our, but the Moolah Spot $1,000 scholarship. This is something we've posted about on our blog before. Check this out. It's a cool $1,000 scholarship. I'm pretty sure any student from anywhere in the country can apply. It says students who need to pay for either college or graduate school, from what I'm seeing on my screen. $1,000, like I said, the deadline is April 30th. It's a real short, simple application. Just have to fill out some basic details and write a short 400-word essay. So check it out. Link on the video, and try to include that in the description as well. It's simple, just moolahspot.com/scholarship. But look forward to giving you some more information in the future. Stay tuned, everyone.